rAVe Radio. With rants and raves, you'll be okay. And today is your lucky day. It is rants and raves with Gary K.
Hey everyone, this is Gary K, and you're joining me for a new edition of Rants and Raves, which we are all about InfoComm right now, and our week after InfoComm, which is going to replay all the great things that have happened in 2021. And one of those companies that had a big impact on the market in 2021 is Sony. So I'm excited to be joined with Mark Bonifacio, who is the technically now you're the director of B2B, right, Mark?
Yes, director of business management part of B2B, basically marketing.
Yeah, basically marketing for B2B. Yep. And hey, there's a lot of development going on. I mean, the industry, this has been a tough year and a half. No one will deny that. I think that's been played over and over and over again. Sure. But tell me specifically how Sony is sort of, I mean, you've obviously had to redefine the way you operate. I mean, you're from your house. I've been doing all my stuff at my house, and we've been sometimes in contact with people, and most of the time been on Zoom and Teams and other applications like that. But you know, how has Sony been working with their channel partners and end users through all of this?
Yeah, sure, Gary. So yeah, obviously we've all had to adapt over the last 18 plus months, and you know what that is. Parts of what that has done for us is that it's enabled us to really step into our customers' shoes, right? Because the things that we had to change, they have to change too. So what we've really been doing these past year or so, a little bit more than a year, is we've been expanding who we're listening to, or our voice of customer, not just the channel partners, but we've been expanding out and talking to other industry leaders, other collaborating partners of ours, to see what they're seeing in trends and to work together to make sure that we together are bringing viable solutions to the marketplace. So in addition to partners, consultants, people like that. So we've kind of expanded our reach and opened our ears some more, and we're helping to develop solutions to help this hybrid and remote operations.
Yeah, I've actually seen Sony being significantly more proactive in the last year and a half with partnerships, and some of that's going to come out in some of the stuff we're talking about today, but also in replay the week after InfoComm. And of course, you're not at InfoComm because obviously you, along with 3/4 of the exhibitors that were planning on going, had to pull out because of various reasons, COVID, health initiatives and concern about what's going on, and it's just not clear yet. But obviously, Sony's hitting the road with a road show, which we'll talk about in a bit. But tell me about kind of the new stuff that you see. I mean, I had a chance to go to the New York event that you had a few months ago, which, by the way, the video for that is going to be in replay. If you're watching this during our replay event the week after InfoComm, if you scroll down the page, you'll see that video there. But if you're watching this as a Rants and Raves videocast, that video is coming. Some of that new stuff was there. For example, the new micro LED, the B and C series, brightness, the B for brightness, C for contrast series, 100-inch, obviously at 100-inch LCD, which is everyone has been talking about since you launched that product. Those are three big product launches. But what else have you been doing since certainly in 2021, Mark?
Well, you touched on a couple of the real highlights there, but basically, last couple of years, and then obviously leading to this year, we've been really doubling down on display technology. So we've expanded our large format display with the 100-inch, as you mentioned, but we also went the other way and we introduced a 32-inch 4K display, which is one of the few 4Ks in the 32-inch range. So now we have from 32 to 100-inch, as well as the direct view LED launches that you just mentioned. And then we introduced some new projectors, the VPL GTZ 380 at the beginning of this calendar year, a 4K 10,000 lumen projector, as well as a refresh of our very popular PHC series, the VPL PHC 50 and 60, which is 5,000 and 6,000 lumens as an entry-level laser. And then if we were at InfoComm, you would see in person, but unfortunately you'll have to come to one of our road shows or visit online. We're expanding our 3 LCD lineup at InfoComm with the new VPL FHD 80 and 85. So slightly higher brightness than the models they replace, and some better user operability and better picture performance with some new reality text features and some other things.
And speaking of that roadshow, you're going to a bunch of cities all around the country, end of this year and the beginning of next year. And if you want to click on the link below, you can actually register to attend. You're going to places like, I'm going to throw them off the top of my head, Mark. I'm not going to know all of them, but I know you're going to Chicago, you're going to Dallas, going to Minneapolis, and a few other places. So if you want to see that list, just click on the link below. If you're watching this as Rants and Raves or in replay, either one, it's on the page. Speaking of the 32 and all the way up to 100-inch sizes, I mean, a big part of this initiative has been leveraging your chip on your SoC platform, right? To your system on a chip, I should say, platform to drive digital signage content. And you've got a plethora of partners. You're not tied to one brand or one company for that.
No, that is correct. As as mentioned at the top of the broadcast here, we've really expanded our work with partners since Rich Ventura came on as the VP of the group last year. He's really pushed onto the partnership alliances and to make a total solution to take it outside of Sony and create that real value to the user. So we've really expanded. We're looking in best of class, basically based on vertical or type of signage you want, whether it's retail or transportation or quick serve QSR, quick serve restaurants, those sort of things. So we're looking at best in class for each of the different verticals or application segments, and trying to align as best we can to ensure interoperability, compatibility, so that when our joint customers or the integrators deploy the solution, it's going to be as smooth as possible.
Yeah, and I should mention also that the LEDs we talked about, the B and C series, technically are called the Crystal LED, which is what Sony brands them as. And of course, if you've been to Sony's booth in the last 3 years at InfoComm or ISE, those have been the most impressive. Like, you walk in and you feel like you're looking at a piece of paper just changing digitally. It's such a high resolution, high contrast product. And you have one that's focused on high brightness applications. Let's say you're putting that in front of a window where you have sunlight coming in. And you have one that's focused on high contrast, meeting room, conference room, classroom applications where you're inside. Those are going to be very popular. Everyone's been talking about those because you brought the technology that is definitely good enough to be used in a movie theater and has been used in very high-end applications into the corporate market, education market, and other places. I'm sure you're getting a lot of interest in the BNC series.
Yeah, absolutely. We are. I mean, besides for our traditional spaces like corporate and education, where we've been strong, we're seeing, new applications for, simulation or virtual production is actually one that's really taking off in the direct view LED world, whether it's backdrops or CG type stuff on those backdrops for the virtual production. So we're seeing it going into places we never imagined before. Virtual production, for example, they're putting them on ceilings as well as the backdrop of walls, right? They're creating that total immersive environment.
Yeah, and completely immersive sets. I mean, if you just Google TV shows and stagecraft technology, which is kind of what it's been branded as, you'll see lots of television shows have been using this. And it's very affordable what you're doing, bringing the B and C series into the market. You've brought the price down considerably, made it competitive to kind of any technology out there, but certainly against any other LED technology.
Yeah, it's definitely the price has come down quite a bit. It's still a premium product, and we pride ourselves on image quality in everything we do, whether capture or display. So we're basically trying to deliver the best picture quality out there to make true representation of what you're trying to capture. So it's it's still a premium product, but it is competitive to the other premium products out there, and I think picture quality, I'd like to say, is second to none.
I would agree. I mean, when you look at it, you're just stunned. Let's shift gears a little bit. Talk about, you mentioned projectors earlier, and a lot of people years ago, I remember 10 years ago, people writing articles that the projector's dying a rapid death. But here we are, a decade later, and all the immersive exhibits I've been to during COVID and coming out of COVID have been driven by projection. There's a lot of really cool immersive applications, but also when we're, with the social distancing and large venue events coming back, projections become more popular. And in fact, we're seeing growth in that market, especially. And also, by the way, projection technology is still a big part of the education market. Talk about that and sort of how you're addressing some of the changes that you're seeing in the world of projection.
Yeah, Gary, you mentioned, some of the key markets. Education, I think, is probably by far still the number one market for projectors, and that's where we've certainly had a lot of our success in the classrooms and the auditoriums. We're continuing to see the trends going towards brighter projectors, which we're addressing. As I mentioned, our FHC 80 and 85 are brighter than the predecessors. We go up to 13,000 lumens now, which is most of the sweet spot. We're not hitting the very, very high end size, but we're hitting the mainstream areas. 4K resolution is another key. As I mentioned, we have the GTZ 380 that does the 4K 10,000 lumens, as well as 4K input, right? So even if you're not displaying 4K, we're now addressing 4K 60p input on the new FHC 80 and 85, which is key, and allows a little bit of future proofing to your operation. So I think projection is still here for the near term, the next few years, until direct view LED, comes down significantly in price. Things over 100 inch, you still require projection technology. So I do see it here to stay for a while.
I agree with you. I think above 100 inch, and I think it's even going to be more than a couple of years. By the way, one of my favorite products in the industry is it's known as the Sony Edge product, Edge Appliance. It's got a lot of different kind of monikers out there. For people that don't know what that is, it's really 5 products in one. I don't know if we want to take a minute to talk about it, because that's one of the products I think that this is the kind of product that if you really understood it, you'd find a way to put it in every installation when you're doing, a group larger than say 5 or 10 people, because it does so many things. I mean, it starts out as an auto tracking device, a handwriting recognition. I kind of already started answering the question, but it's got 3 other features in there, Mark.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you're one of our biggest advocates on that product.
I love it.
It is a wonderful product. Really, it's an analytics. It's a video analytics device. We call it Edge Analytics, and it's essentially a video analytics processor. So we connect it to our cameras, our PTZ or our fixed cameras, and the box is doing analytics of the picture. It's detecting facial recognition, body recognition, to extract out various components. So you take the box and then you add, I think there's 5 different softwares available, of which some of them you can operate 2 simultaneously. As you mentioned, one of them is auto tracking, which is huge in education or even large corporate event productions. The handwriting extraction, which will take images off of a blackboard or a whiteboard and turn it into a video, so that you can basically capture that or stream it out if you were doing to remote learning type of stuff. There's an auto area cropping where it'll basically zoom in. What else is there? The
auto cropping is cool too, because you can shoot one shot of a stage and isolate feeds from that stage, so you can get multiple feeds from one large shot. Right. It's designed for like a stage shot, and also a separate shot showing the moderator, for example, or the instructor, for example, and having separate feeds there. So that's correct. A really neat feature. I think that's an underrated feature, but
and then the other 2 are there's a gesture recognition. So if you had them, depending on how you had them configured in your classroom or your auditorium, somebody raised their hand, it can identify that and zoom in on that person. And then the last one is a chroma keyless CG operation. So you could basically take your video and put any backdrop. Instead of seeing my daughter's room, my office now, I could be sitting on the Himalayan mountains or something, and teaching a class about that, and basically put myself in that environment.
And and of course the auto tracking, what should be mentioned about that is that does not require auto tracking cameras. They just have to be PTZ cameras, and it can communicate to them, tell them where to go, and you don't have to wear anything to track you, which is really pretty cool. In fact, interestingly enough, you bring that up because Sony's DNA has been cameras for a long time. I mean, I remember, as a kid having Sony cameras all the way, and you've been a big part of the broadcast market. Some of the biggest innovations, HD, 4K, analog to digital, have all been driven by Sony. What's new and exciting in your PTZ camera line?
So our PTZ camera line, we revamped a little less than a year ago. We introduced the SRGX series, and then we expanded, soon, a few months after that. So the SRGX series, the key new changes were that they're 4K native chips, but rather than driving the price point up, we introduced them at an HD chip, price, so similar to our predecessor series, with a 4K license, so you can upgrade to 4K when you need to, so you can future-proof. It also has NDI capability. NDI is extremely popular in the production space now, so you could add a software on to allow it to communicate with the NDI devices. And then we introduced a POV and a box camera version of them, so where you might have tighter camera spaces like esports or right there on your countertop or your desk where you're broadcasting from right now. We could have a nice high quality POV camera right there to get those images in tight places.
Yeah, and obviously, as we move back to the office, a big part of that's going to be meeting room and meeting spaces, I should say. I think there's going to be a big movement towards turning spaces that we used to call huddle spaces into actual meeting spaces that maybe don't have four walls. And a part of that's going to be BYOD capability. And I know that a lot of brands have been talking about that for many years. Where's Sony with regard to that? And, maybe even leveraging some QR code technology to help with BYOD.
Yeah. So our displays are enabled with screen mirroring sharing, right? So for Apple or Android devices, you can mirror.
That's right. You have native AirPlay in your displays, which most manufacturers don't have. I forgot about that.
Yep. Yeah. So what it does is it doesn't necessarily have to be content, but we can mirror your devices for control or other types of things that you can control from your device and control back through the system through the display. So like you mentioned, the QR codes or even even just network control or other things to operate the meeting room system, right? So rather than having to touch a Crestron panel or something, or you can control from your device.
Yeah, and a part of that also is I think there's a lot of applications that you're playing in with your system on a chip technology where you're able to take that meeting room display and turn it into a digital signage display whenever it's not in use. So whenever that sharing doesn't happen, you can automatically flip it back. So Mark, you've got a lot of stuff going on at Sony. Even though Sony's not going to be at InfoComm, Sony's going to have a big impact on this market as we move forward. We're going to put a link to the road show. Again, if you're watching this, regardless of where you're watching this, if you look down, you'll see a link to the roadshow locations. I'm actually going to be at a couple of your road shows. I'll be at your Dallas event. I'll be at your Minneapolis event as well. And I'm excited to see things start coming back. I understand why Sony couldn't physically get to InfoComm, but we're going to help bring Sony to the InfoComm attendees and the people who, let's be honest, most people aren't going to InfoComm, but the people who aren't going to InfoComm, I'm going to help them bring it to them as well. So in any case, I want to thank you, Mark, for joining me today.
Thank you, Gary.
Mark, you and your team are doing a phenomenal job, and the lights in my office are turning off, telling me it's like playing played off in the Oscars, when you're talking too long and the music starts playing. So that means that I have to say goodbye. So Mark, thanks for your time today. Mark Bonifacio from Sony. I appreciate you for your time. I'll put a link into your LinkedIn profile if you don't mind so people can connect with you.
That's great. Appreciate that, Gary. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
And thanks to Sony for supporting the industry, for supporting Replay 2021. And of course, thank you for watching.
Thanks.
rAVe Radio with